Okay, back around to the back. We see that the lift gate opens and closes, latches smoothly. Kind of hard to do when I'm just using one hand here, holding the camera in my right hand, and I'm right-handed. The back, the floor, the wheel wells are all fairly well pristine. I've got some junk that's accumulated in here, and it's a little hard to tell with the cables and everything. Again, the upholstery is not in great shape. I've got a pristine rear seat for it. That would come with it, of course, and the top and everything is fine. Incidentally, it's got a full multi-point roll cage with a sandbar installed on the top, which is a very common and, I guess, useful, helpful feature in California. Running in the desert, but it is the bar is well supported, and it has a structure across the top in case you would flip it on the top. That keeps your head out of the sand. The floor is very nice. It does have a patch on the side of the tunnel because when it had the 4-speed and it had a manual shifter, which you had to do that, the accessory floor shifter, you had to cut the side out of the drive shaft tunnel and replace it with a fiberglass cover. But that's so that's all there. I think we've got the Hurst ratchet shifter. I mentioned that. And there's a little surface rust on the floors, but the floors are solid, the columns are solid. That may be one of its nicest features, is that there is absolutely zero rust. And what did I do here? Hold on. Well, we're going to try this one more time. This is my 5th or 6th attempt at trying to document the Broncos I have for sale. You asked for a few pictures. That should have been an easy task. But I'm just not good at it. I start taking pictures, and then I want to write out all kinds of details and captions for each picture, and it gets unwieldy. I finally realized I've got a video camera, that I might be better off just taking a video and talking while I'm taking it. But I'm even screwing that up. Don't ever get old. This is probably my most valuable Bronco. We're looking at a 1967. That I purchased in 1974 when I was out in California running Baja. I've looked in the paper to find a Bronco to pre-run with, and this one was for sale. It ended up being owned by Jim Brightly. Jim at that time was the technical editor of Four Wheeler Magazine, was for years. I think he's still on the staff and writes articles for them occasionally. This was his personal Bronco, and it was also used as a project car. There were articles in Four Wheeler over just about anything, because Jim did extensively modify the Bronco for his personal needs and tastes. Number one thing, it had a 351 Cleveland, and it's still got a 351 emblem on the fender. The 351 Cleveland straight motor, or crate motor with a forged crank. Behind it, he put a T10 4-speed, and is it Borg Warner or Stuart Warner had a 2-speed overdrive behind the Borg Warner 4-speed. Unfortunately, neither one of those things would take the would handle the horsepower that could be put out by that 351. And it was a good one with the big valves and the special heads. It was actually a marine engine, had a forged crankshaft in it, put out gobs of horsepower. And when you put a travel trailer on the end of it, or get off-road and dump it a couple of times, it kept breaking transmissions and breaking overdrives, and it actually had a broken transmission when I bought it, which leads to another story about how I acquired a NASCAR top loader built by Ford with the Bronco conversion in it, which I still own. But right now the Bronco's got a C4 automatic in it. I replaced actually I sold the Cleveland to a fellow that was building a pulling truck, and replaced it with a 351 Windsor. It's actually got a mild Windsor out of a Ford LTT. It's a LTD, a later 70s model LTD. It's just got a 2-wheeler carburetor on it, but it's got plenty of torque, and it gives it all kinds of capability. Jim also put in a very solid receiver hitch, which combines with a skid pad, a full heavy-duty skid pad under the gas tank, goes up into the frame. It's overkill, but Jim pulled a 24-foot trailer, a travel trailer, Many places he went to weekend events, went out four-wheeling in the Bronco, covered the event, shot a lot of pictures, pulled the trailer back home. Because of that, the Bronco has 456 gears, front and rear. It's got a Dana 44 front axle, which is trussed for, it looks like a bridge. It's a little dark. I don't think I can get a good picture under there, but the Dana 44 axle is fully trussed. You might be able to get a bit of a view of it. Still has the drum brakes. Has mounts for multiple shocks, which was one of their projects. It had Thunderbird power steering on it, which was a one of the featured articles in the magazine. It didn't work out well. I later had a Dave Cook GMC truck power steering conversion. You can see the GMC variable ratio truck power steering box right there, I believe, if that's in focus. I can get a much better shot of that later. What have I not shown you? This Bronco's been sitting here for a good 5 or 6 years. I forget why one day it didn't start, and I just never got back to it. It's been sitting here not running. A couple of the good features of this Bronco is that, except for the dent in the rocker panel and the little bit of body damage right here, just a tiny amount of body damage there in the back at that corner. What have we got here? Tiny amount of body damage. This is all very quick jobs on this fender edge. It's pretty well pristine. There's no rust at all except for the rocker panel on the other side. Remind me to show you that. The floorboards are solid. I can get in there and kick on it if you'd like. But anyway, there's the floorboards are a little rusty. Did have carpeting on it. But there's nothing rusted. There's no penetration anywhere. The floor inside is very nice. I got junk in there, fence posts and 4x4s, a whole bunch of cable and nylon rope from pulling things, and for some reason it looks like I got some inner tubes in there. It's hard to tell, but the body is great. There's no rust. I mean, it's just, I think, a quick sandblasting, and I don't think you could find any holes in it, with the exception of, notice how nice the doors close here. That's it. Another look in the back to see that it's rusted, but not, or it's rusty but not rusted. And it's not even rusty every place. It had a lot of coats of paint on it. Other side, it's the same way. We'll kind of run over. It's harder for me to get back. Okay, here's the rusted out rocker panel. That's going to need to be replaced, obviously. But again, like the rest of the Bronco, the door sills are good. The cowl is good. There is no rust whatsoever up inside on the firewall and in the cowl section, and that's I don't know if we're going to be able to see up under that fender well. Might be able to get the camera in there. But that critical and hugely important cowl section is intact inside the fenders, and that's true on both sides. That's the worst part of any Bronco. We've had enough experience with Broncos to know that's, if they're going to rust, that's where they go. And once that cowl runs out, it's pretty hard to keep the doors on. Again, here's how nice the doors close. Just a little push. Slams like a refrigerator door. Unique feature on the 66 and 67 Broncos is it had a real fold down windshield. Pull two knobs inside. It's got a little latch at the top of the windshield, which allows the windshield to fold flat onto the hood and hook onto that little hook that you see in the middle of the hood. and it rides there and holds it down, keeps it from flopping around. This one has an electric wiper conversion. I don't know where the wiper arms have gone to, but it does have dual electric wipers. Inside, these Broncos came with, at least 66 and 67 came with vacuum wipers, and they were, to say the least, not very functional. They were enough to pass inspection, I guess. Bronco has a Hurst ratchet shifter for the C4 automatic, which I install on bugs. It's got a later model transfer case shifter. I don't know what that probably came out of probably a 74 that I had at the time, or I had several of those. A little slicker. It's got a push button to lock it in, lock it out, instead of that silly gated thing. Obviously I'm going to have to find the keys. I don't know where they are, but I'm sure I got them in the house. That's about it for the Bronco. It has a 351. I could raise the hood, but I don't know what that's especially going to tell you. I might as well. Let me set the camera down here for a second. It's pointing at the ground as I'm still talking. I just remember how to open the hood. Okay. What we have here is a 351 Windsor. This one is out of about a, if I remember right, about a 76 Crown Victoria, or LTD, or whatever they made at that time. It's complete. It's got a 2-barrel carburetor. It's nothing special. Got plenty of torque. Runs smooth. Actually, this motor in another Bronco, and I'll show you the 69 back there, was running a few closed course to obstacle course races, and it was good enough to win some races. Got with the 2-barrel carburetor and the small valves of a 351 Windsor. It's got a lot more torque than even the Clevelands do. It's really a superior off-road engine because it's lighter. It'll almost bolt in place of a 302. You do have to modify the oil pan, use the correct oil pump to clear the axle. This does have all of that modification, so that's not a problem. I don't think I can get a shot of the modified oil pan. See all the wiring is there. It's got an extra capacity alternator. Has a steering, power steering cooler. Keeps the oil from boiling in the power steering unit, which can be a problem. I flipped a Bronco end over end one time during an enduro because I didn't have a big enough cooler on the power steering. You know, I got bubbling. I got air bubbles in it. On my racer, I'll show you later. I've got a transmission oil cooler on the power steering unit. Okay, we're going to pause this for a second and close the hood. And I think we've probably completed the video on this Bronco. Told you about everything I can tell you. If you have any questions or anything else you want to know, just ask. But it's a nice, straight, basically rust-free Bronco. I think a minimal amount of restoration would make it a real cherry collector's item, and of course it's got a history. I just found out I pressure, it was pretty dirty after sitting out there for a couple of years with no attention. I pressure washed it, and I noticed in a lot of places the gold paint is coming off, and I can only assume that it must have at one time been white underneath the paint. But anyway, that's taken care of. I think I've told you everything that I can tell you about it. I believe that's it. Okay, let's move on to, since it happens to be sitting right here, this is an 84 Bronco. Has the old 306 in it. That these things have been known to run 1,000,000 miles before Ford finally quit making them because nobody ever wore them out. This is just a decent 84 Bronco that I live out in the country. We do get some major snows out here. My wife used to work 30 miles away up in St. Louis, and I decided it would be nice just to buy her a nice big Bronco to drive back and forth to work if the weather was bad. And I went out and bought this Bronco. I had a little bit of rust, figured that's no problem, I'll fix that up. I got into it and they opened up a little rust hole, and that led to another one, led to another one, led to another one. I've probably got 500 hours of welding in this thing. It's got 2 new quarter panels, it's got 2 new front fenders, it's got 2 new inner fender panels, it's got new wheel wells, it's got a new floor section in the back of the Bronco. It still needs this floor finished up. Just never got to it. The other floor is, you can bang on it with a sledgehammer. I kind of overkilled it and reinforced it and so on. It's got all the seats, and I've got all the interior, and it's got the top. It's got a nice dashboard. Just make a good old 84 Bronco. It's got a 306 in it, and of course enough room to put any kind of V8. Floor pan, I think now would be easily available. At the time they weren't, and I just reconstructed it by hand, but it's undercoated and just as solid as a rock over there. Let's go back over and show you the floor pan. Okay. Yeah, you could hit it with a sledgehammer and it won't move. I got a lot of steel reinforcing underneath it before I put the floor pan in. But it's got, again, I got in new wheel wells. It's got, you can probably see them under here. This entire wheel well here has been replaced, as has the other side. The inner fender panels again are new. I've got the door, and I've got the tail lights, and I've got the swing away tire carrier, and just never quite finished it up. But that's kind of been the story of my life. Okay, that's real quick. This one here I'm almost ashamed to show. This is my my low mileage one owner. Bought this Bronco in June of 1965. It came out of the Chicago Auto Show. I believe it was the first retail delivery of a Ford Bronco. I think I was the first owner, other than maybe some mock-ups and things that they had. It's got a full heavy-duty 2-inch super reinforced competition roll cage. It's built much like a NASCAR. That roll cage is evolved much like a NASCAR stock car would be now. It's got the, of course, the steering columns mounted on the crossbar. Let's see if we can back off here and get a better shot of that. What am I pointing at here? I don't know why this piece of siding is here. Vehicle sat here for a long time, and you start storing things in them. But the there's a bar here, a bar there supporting the dash and the cowl section, the knee bar, door bars on that side, extra cross bracing. This you can somersault this Bronco now and set it back up on the wheels and take off with it. It's got a 4-core GTO radiator across the front that's got its own roll cage. It's got 2-inch tubing built all the way up with its own roll cage around the radiator. It's got a transmission cooler built into the radiator and a full-size transmission cooler for the power steering. It's got a huge Allis-Chalmers Gleaner oil cooler to keep the transmission cool. It's got a Mach 1 Mustang engine in it. That hood and front end is just loosely sitting on it. That's a spare front end I had for somewhere. If we take all the Broncos, I'll throw that in too. It's the hood's nice. It's mostly usable. I think I got enough front end parts. I got fiberglass parts too for Broncos. I don't know what else I can tell you about this. It's the B&M shifter's been stolen out of it, and the round hall carburetor that would allow this thing to practically run upside down with the spring-loaded floats has been stolen. and probably the engine is frozen up because they stole the carburetor off the engine, and it was gone for a couple of days before I noticed and got it covered up. So the engine had to be unstuck or rebuilt or something, I'm sure. Other than that, this Bronco with the old technology that was available years ago has got the NASCAR tie rod end shocks, 2 on each corner, custom built rear springs, rear main leafs that are extra long and extra thick. It's got Ford F350 coils in the front. This Bronco has been 6 foot off the ground and landed successfully, unlike the cars you can build today. It bounces once or twice. It doesn't just sop it up, but I finally, took me years to build a Bronco you couldn't break, and this is pretty well it. I won every race I ever finished with this Bronco. It's got, as you can see, the heavy-duty Gabriel shocks. Got tie rod end shocks, the NASCAR style on the front, and the shocks in the stock location. You can see the roll cage is also braced into shock towers, and I wish I had more hands while I could do this. I don't know if I can pick all this up or not. But anyway, that radiator is fully protected. There's a shaker screen in front of the radiator to keep the mud out of it. And your choice of whatever you might want to do with the body. This one's showing 32,000 miles on it. So I guess you could call that a low mileage one owner, but it's not quite a cream puff. But it's safe. I think throwing on some fiberglass or some sheet metal would make it a very interesting car. The Bronco doesn't have a lot of rust, surprisingly, but it's had its share. But it used to spend a lot of time in the river and underwater. I had it snorkeled. I don't think I've still got the hand throttle on here, but at one time I had it set up where I could sit up on the roll cage, had a hand throttle on it, automatic transmission. I could drive it underwater, and as long as I could keep my head out of the water, it'd run. You could shut it off and in 10 foot of water, let it sit for 45 minutes, go back, turn the key, and it would start. Had a sealed battery, sealed air cleaner, had everything run into the air cleaner, all the hoses and rear axle, front axle vents, and transmission vents and vacuum lines. It was it was every weekend down at the Black River for a couple of years playing if we weren't out racing somewhere. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. This is a 1977 Bronco. I think these were the only Broncos, 77 and 76. Last 2 years they made them, and in 77, of course, they made both the little one and the big one. But they were the only Broncos ever built that had good brakes and good steering. Very desirable year. I think they had inferior steel in them, because both my 77s are just horribly rusted away to nothing. I mean, even after homemade repairs and everything else, the doors still want to fall off. The floors, you can see through the floor. The best thing you could do with this thing is take the body off and throw it away and put a fiberglass body or a replica body on it. But the 77s are so desirable because it's the only Bronco that Ford ever made that had good steering. It's got disc brakes. 66 is true again, too. It's got 350 Dana 44 in the front, Dana's 9-inch Ford in the back. Dual gas tanks, things like that. Not a heck of a lot to say about it, but it's got a very nice chassis. And you'll find some good body parts on it. It's got a nice top and the fenders and so on, but it's a great candidate probably for a fiberglass body. Let me walk over here and we'll go find another 77. I think it's over here. Yeah, there's my other 77. Just about the same amount of rust. Dual tanks. This Bronco I bought from a fella, and it had I got to cover up some nails here just a second. Okay, let's get back. This Bronco has a new Jasper rebuilt engine in it. I bought this from a fella that bought this Bronco and just put a fortune in it. He put a new Jasper rebuilt engine in it, rebuilt the automatic, Jasper rebuilt automatic transmission, put an extra large gas tank in it. I think it's got the dual tanks if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it does. Well, it's set up for the dual tanks. Looks like the tank went somewhere. I'm sure I got it around. Anyway, but it is so rusted that he was driving it down the street one day, and the lower part of the quarter panel, including the doorpost, fell out. So it's about as rusted as it can get. But it's a dandy Bronco. It's got a Jasper rebuilt 302 in it. I think if I can get that open, let's see. Yes, it does, and that's complete. Just runs like a new did. It's been sitting for a while, but it should start and run. It's again, it's all factory there with a new rebuilt engine and transmission. Obviously, it doesn't have a lot of body, but it's got a great chassis. It's got disc brakes. It's got the good power steering, and not quite as good as the GMC truck steering, but good steering. Over there in the woods, I got another, I've got several Bronco tops. They're not Charta tops. They're not really part of the other deal here, but I guess the tops would be for sale. There's a top here. Let me run over here. I think I can find another top. This is completely off the Bronco subject, but I do also have a 75 Suburban with a pretty decent body, a 400 small block in it, freshly rebuilt transmission, 456 gears, 1435 tires on it, decent interior. It's not much. I don't know if you're even into Suburbans, but I guess I could be brought upon to sell it too. I drove it in there and parked it. I don't know if it still runs or not. I've got a lot of reasons that I could go into that I have been away from these things for a while. But anyway, it's a story on a Suburban, which I just happen to see sitting back here. Also there's just no end of what's going on down here. Back in there is a 79 Ford four-wheel drive pickup, if I can find it. Yeah, I think you can see it through the woods here. 6-cylinder, just an old wood truck. Got a 306 in it, runs great. Forget why it's parked down there. Because I was driving it all the time. I think it just needs a battery, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, got a 69 Dodge Dart down there with a roll cage and some other stuff. That'd practically give away for pound price. Ready to haul. Definitely not Bronco related, but I got a 72 Ford Pinto, one owner with 50,000 actual miles on it. I got another Bronco back in here, very interesting. This one is a 69. Right now has no engine, no transmission, no running gear. Well, I'm sorry, it does have 456 gears in it. It's got a Detroit locker with 456 in the back. It's got a Dana 44, actually personally set up by Bill Strop on this one, in the front with 456 gears in it. It's got a nice, reasonably straight body. A little bit of rust, but not bad. The floors are basically solid. I think the only rust is right there. It's worth fixing. The reason this is sitting here is I needed an engine and transmission to put in that gold Bronco, the California Bronco. After I sold the Cleveland out of it, I had this sitting here. It had a good running, good working 351 with the motor, or with the transmission. I just pulled it out and put it in the other one. This Bronco is also set up for the quad shocks with the extra mounts. You'll notice the strap mounts for the tie rod end shocks here, and the towers up above on the springs, or above the springs. There is no call rust. If you want to see a perfect call section, this is easy because the fenders are off. Okay. This is a little view of that GMC truck box with the Dave Cook conversion. Now it sits sort of inside and partially in the frame rail. Comes out using most of the Broncos steering column, then it runs to two U-joints. You can see where it connects to the Bronco steering column. You can probably see the U-joints. The U-joints come down to the steering box, and the steering box is mounted partially into the reinforced Bronco frame harn. It sits inside the frame harn where it's protected. Gives you a this incidentally is a strop axle with a cable truss, and the cable is broke. It needs to be reinstalled. Lent that to somebody for a weekend. He cut it on a rock. The where were we? Oh, anyway, this is a probably a 80s vintage variable ratio GMC heavy-duty pickup power steering box. They're very strong. You can't break them. It gives 2.5 turns lock to lock, and it's effortless. The steering is just wonderful, and you can't beat them for obstacle courses or road racing. And you quit tearing out steering boxes in the middle of the race. But it's got a this one, I guess, just has a small power steering cooler on it, unlike mine that has the same setup. And that gold Bronco's got the same setup. They've all got the Dave Cook. I took these all to Kansas City, had the steering installed, and brought them back home. Anyway, what else can I tell you about that? I guess that's pretty well complete. I think we saw them in here. Hot also fits in there, and it's I mean, this Bronco has had it's not as much abuse as that blue one, but it's been in the air plenty of times. It's been off-roaded. It's hit a lot of ruts, and you can see nothing has moved. It was properly engineered and is well installed, and it will work. Again, this is all set up for quad shocks. I don't know where all the shocks are, but it's got the mounts for the quad shocks. Pretty nice rear end. I don't know where the tailgate is. I bet I got it somewhere. I don't think I'd have had it without a tailgate. The bed and the steel is this is all restorable. There's nothing missing. It's got the doors, and it looks like the roll cage is out. I do have the roll cage for this Bronco sitting on the ground over there where the old blue one is. Okay, that's why the glove compartment door, the end of the glove compartment door, if you look up there, is cut off. That's what made me think of it, so you could open the glove compartment door with the roll cage on it. Let's see, I think I've covered all my Broncos. That should give you enough to let you know if it's worth coming down here and taking a look at everything. I've got other interesting cars sitting around. Over there's a 57 Pontiac that I had when I was in high school. That needs to be restored. I got school buses and semi-trailers and stuff full of parts. Got an old 3-door Suburban that I would sell cheap, that I mainly use as a storage shed. Got a Daytona Shelby Z. Another 57 Pontiac. Trailer's full of stuff. Good old rusty but not rusted. So another 78 Ford pickup. That one's 2-wheel drive instead of 4-wheel drive. And that's about it. So I'll get you that. I hope that gives you a pretty good taste of what we got, and we'll go from there. Thank you, and goodbye.